The most powerful sales tool that you've always had is hindsight. And you probably know more than you give yourself credit for. And you also know where you should be looking to get better in the cave that you fear to enter. Reviewing your sales calls, listening to the sound of your own voice and having to endure feelings of rejection and failure all over again is tough. And today, I offer you the opportunity to rid yourself of this fear, reforging yourself in the fire that burned you. My name is Cody Morris, and I'm going to ask you to check your ego at the door, because in this video, I'm going to teach you how to review your sales calls the old-fashioned way by knowing what to listen to and how to do it in a timely manner. If you want to learn how to review heaps of sales calls very quickly, I've got another video for that.
The speed!
Because learning how to identify and use insights from call review, no matter how you do it, is going to turn you into a masterpiece. So here are the 4 things to get good at for call review. Number 1 is call selection, because listening to the right calls will deliver you the best insights, and listening to bad prospects is going to make you want to burn it all down. Number 2 is sales trajectory, because you're going to want to keep it in the lines, and I'll explain more about that later. Number 3 is the biggest lever, one long enough to lift your closing rates per chance. Number 4 is delivering and internalizing feedback. We're going to make it make sense for you or the ones that you lead. So let's get started. Call selection. Now, before we just start picking sales calls, let's think about the different types of calls and different prospects that we talk to on a monthly basis. Because again, listening to the wrong calls will send you down a wasteful rabbit hole. A good place to start for overall business insights will be reviewing all won deals and offers made in the past 30 days, 60, 90 days, the more the better. And you probably don't have a way to process a large volume of calls, but I do. However, if you're just reviewing to get better at closing deals, you really only need a few calls, and we're going to look at the most recent closable prospects. A closable prospect is someone who generally fits our ICP. Now, if you've identified some prospects to listen to, and you do oversee the entire sales process, like it's your business or you're a manager, you're likely going to want to also understand the buyer's journey that they've taken with the company so far. And every single contact point that you can possibly get your mitts on, you're going to want to see how a prospect has engaged with your company so far and in the past. If you're just in it for you and your commission check, that's okay. Grab the call recording or transcript and off you go to the next section. Now, I'm actually going to grab a call or two for myself to review alongside you, and I'm going to demonstrate how we do some of this stuff. Okay, so we're looking at 2 sales calendars, and this is one of the easiest ways to pick a call to review. Who do we talk to recently that was a closable prospect? And so we are going to review this call that happened first thing Monday morning. It's Wednesday as I'm recording this.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
On one of my sales reps' calendars. Now we're going to go over to the CRM. This probably looks familiar to you. And here we see a 14-minute intro call that is basically a discovery call for our marketing services. We have a few different offerings, but we have one avatar. And, here she is. Now, full disclaimer, I have not listened to any of this call. I did process it through my call review IQ process. And so I kind of have a roundabout idea of what we're looking for, but I want to demonstrate some of this stuff live. So my reaction to this call is my authentic reaction. And what we're looking for, again, is the one thing that we could do to improve our chances at closing this deal. If you're reviewing a close, there are still things to work on. You'll be looking for a more efficient path to the close. For now, we are looking for that one thing. And before we find that one thing, we need to first talk about sales trajectory. In order to find the one thing, improve our sales process, and give the biggest coaching point, or what I call the biggest lever, we need to think about the concept trajectory. More dramatically, we need to think of a giant cruise ship flying through the vastness of space. A few years ago, a great show came out with House's Hugh Laurie. It's called Avenue 5. It's on Max, and it's based in the future where you can chart a course through our solar system. It's supposed to be an 8-week voyage, but then it gets 0.21 degrees off course, which changes its ETA back to Earth to 3 years. 0.21 degrees off course, adding 2 years and 10 months to the travel time. And we're all on a trajectory in life. Sales follows a trajectory. And this concept of trajectory, binded with the new heightened perspective that we gain as we review calls, gives you immense power. I think true intelligence is really the ability to spot patterns, and with enough call review data, patterns will reveal themselves, and those patterns can make you rich. Now, practically, again, we're looking for the moment or the moments where we got off course and our trajectory started aiming towards lost deal instead of, do you take Amex? Now, this is where your experience or lack thereof is going to come into play heavily. If you're new to sales, call review, or understanding how people buy things, you may need some help identifying the moments that really fucking matter. And if an obvious derailment doesn't jump out to you in the first few minutes of a call, go and listen to what goes down right after an offer is made or towards the end. Whether that's an offer to book another meeting like this call we're about to listen to, buy something, or just do something else, literally anything else. Ask yourself, how did the prospect respond to a call to action? How do they respond to an attempt to close them? Or give them some coaching for a next step. When we see where someone starts a sales call from and then stops or changes directions, it leaves clues for what happened before in the messy middle where the derailment might be. So let's find an example of a derailment right now.
I thought I said, what's that? I thought I said 11. But anyways, did I agree 10:30?
Yeah, I thought that we decided 10:30 because you said that you had anywhere from 10 to 11.
Yeah, okay, no problem. We can talk.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. Appreciate you making some time. So just as a quick reminder.
Okay, so already this call is not off to a great start. The prospect doesn't really remember who the sales rep is, and there's some back and forth around what the time of the actual meeting was, but we're getting into it now. We got some agreement to move forward with the call, and then now we're about to hear the sales rep's frame or agenda setting.
Obviously, we were texting about estate planning, asking if that's still a priority for you. You had said that, yes, you're working mostly in immigration and real estate at the moment, and that, you were kind of considering looking either for a mentor or a business coach. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the boot camp that we're putting on because it's perfect for attorneys who are wanting to get into estate planning, but haven't yet made that jump, either because you don't have the experience, the training, etc. The boot camp is holistic in that we're trying to get, we have a training program for our attorneys. Actually, we have both a live training and a video course that you're going to have lifetime access to. During the live training, it's going to be 4 different days. It's going to be part education, but
okay. Right off the jump, I'm already having some different thoughts than I thought I was going to have. I went into this, again, without listening to the call. There was a very important question that gets missed that we haven't gotten to yet that I, up until this very past minute and 41 seconds, thought that it was going to be the biggest bottleneck. This is now what I think is the biggest derailment. We start selling way too soon in this call. We start telling her about one of our solutions, an accelerator that we have coming up. I'm assuming because this prospect's a little cold, but remember this, regardless of if a prospect is very warm and hot and bothered or ice cold, once you reset the expectation of how a discovery call is going to go and you have gotten agreement from them to ask questions about their business, their life, their health, their relationship, their whatever your domain and subject matter is, once you have gotten a permission and agreement from them, you need to go through a consultative discovery. You need to ask questions about their challenges and, more importantly, the challenges that we know we can solve. So we can stop this right now. But I will tell you right now, doing this dramatically, this is our 0.21 degrees off course in Avenue 5. We are going to fully change the trajectory of this conversation because we start selling instead of discover her challenges, pain points, goals, the gap, why she can't get there by herself. So just to fully let the cat out of the bag, when I ran this through my call review IQ process, I thought the fact that we did not ask this attorney, this person, where and how she was getting her clients, which we know the answer to like 80, 90% of the time is come warm network, word of mouth referrals. Very infrequently does an attorney actually do lead generation of any kind. It's a very small percentage. So I thought that's was going to be my coaching point and I was going to get there and we were going to talk about it. But literally less than 2 minutes in, we're already selling like Could be that this prospect was a little colder. We can definitely listen to more to find out more. But right now, that is by far the biggest derailment. And so if that jumped out to you immediately, great, congratulations. You have a great ear for this stuff and you know what you're listening for. We can literally stop this review right now. And if I was going to give feedback to this sales rep, if this sales rep asked me for feedback on this call or paid me to give them feedback there, I would listen to more of the call, but then I would give them coaching on this right here is the biggest thing. No ifs, ands, buts about it. So with that, let's get back into how to go through the rest of a call review and what to look for. Well, sometimes, folks, that is how it happens. Now, to keep this video relatively short, I'm not going to review the rest of this call. I did send it through my call review IQ process. And if you're call review curious and you want to be thorough, I figured I'd give you all of the prompts or the questions that I may ask myself personally whenever I listen to calls. It's what I've trained people to listen for when they review calls. And now, thanks to our tech overlords, I train machines to look for and listen for. The list is quite long, but it's also really valuable, so skip ahead at your own peril. Okay, so initially, how did the prospect begin the call? Like we looked at with this last one, she was kind of confused and she went back about in time. What can you observe about you, what you can hear or see? Are they present? If they're on camera or video, do they look like a serious person? I get that's kind of subjective and people can surprise you, but trust your gut. Sometimes people counter signal like they don't look like they have money and they do, etc. But are they put together? Do they have a good background? Like, is their camera and the audio good? Usually these are telltale signs. And if you've been in sales for a bit, you probably already have a really good initial gut read on people. And most people will reveal their true intentions pretty easily if you know what to pay attention to. Next, ask yourself, did someone take control of the frame and set a clear agenda? And please tell me it was us. We heard our sales rep do that in this last call that we just looked at. Was there a clear, this is where we stopped, obviously, our review just now. Was there a clear identification of a problem? Was the gap between where they are and where they want to be discussed? Was it expanded? Was it made bigger, more significant? Was it talked about in excruciating detail? Were there core issue or issues diagnosed? Did the sales rep say, this is your problem, this is the root problem, this is the biggest problem, and if you don't fix this, things are going to happen, right? Better or worse? And was it summarized pretty succinctly? You will be very, very shocked and surprised at the value of simply being able to articulate something very succinctly or concisely. Did the salesperson express confidence and certainty in helping the prospect solve that problem? This is called a capability statement. You might hear people do this all the time. It's like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, because of such and such reason and what you've been telling me, good news, bad news. Bad news is this sucks. Good news is we can definitely help you. This is the exact reason why we created product service ABC. Next, when you get into the presentation, was the presentation of our solution clearly outlined? Were there outcomes, timelines, important milestones? Was this discussed or shown visually? And do you think that the prospect is still engaged when they're going through the presentation? I think we've all been on both sides of a really long meeting or call where we're like, Jesus, get me off of this freaking call. You may have even hung up on people before. I know I have. And did the sales rep temp check if they're still engaged, interested? Did they stop? Did they, did they pay attention to someone looking at their phone, turning off their camera, going on mute? Like, did that change how the sales rep engaged with the prospect, or did they just kind of plow through slides or a bunch of a big long script? How was pricing brought up and discussed? Did the prospect ask? Did they not ask? Did they ask about it 10 minutes into the call? Like where and how and when and what was discussed around pricing? This is the most important thing that a prospect comes to a sales call to get. Trust me. And then what was the prospect's reaction to the price? I could go in deeper detail of like how to structure an offer and how to give the outcome and then the price and chunking up and anchoring and all this kind of stuff, but we're not going to do that. What was the prospect's reaction to the price? This is my favorite part to listen to at scale. I listen to this moment more frequently than any other moment. Well, maybe not the beginning of a call, but how was the prospect's reaction to a price? Were they like, holy shit? Or were they like, okay, or let me think about it, or that sounds about right? Like, what was their initial gut reaction? Was there a clear objection? If so, how would you classify it? Was a money objection? Was a trust objection? Was it a great, sounds good, I got to go think about it, call me later? Was it a don't call me, I'll call you? Was it I got to talk to my business partner, spouse, boss, so-and-so? Did they throw the power off, right? What was the objection? How would you classify it? And were there several layers or there several objections? Did they throw the whole kitchen sink at you where they're like, well, this is really a lot of money and I need to talk to my wife before doing anything over $5,000 anyway, and it's not really a good time of year? Like, that's usually a smokescreen. They just try to start throwing landmines at you to hopefully you'll trip and fall and blow up on one and give up. And then what did the sales rep do to handle, minimize, or remove the prospect's objections? And how would you say that went? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it cringy? Did you hate it? Were you impressed? Did you forget? Did you black out? You're like, I don't even remember saying that. So this is the full list. Now, if you want the full list of prompts and you didn't pause them and copy them down, you can actually get this guide and many other things in my sales management school. The group is no longer free to join. It is $15 a month. So you can make your own decision if you want to join that. But I have a classroom for how to do sales and then also how to manage sales people and sales teams. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. And the group is relatively small still. We'd love to have you in there. Okay, so that is the full list of call review prompts that I would ask myself if I were listening to the entire call. These days, because of my call review IQ process, I rarely really listen to an entire sales call. I've also had call review managers and people who review calls for me for years now. But if you're new to this, if you're new to call review and you haven't done this thousands of times like I have, endure it. Listen to the full call, even the parts you hate, and thank me later from all the sales that you will close because of this bit of discomfort that you're willing to endure. Remember, discipline equals freedom. Now, these days, I rarely listen to an entire sales call thanks to all the systems and processes I have, but if you're new to this, please endure it. And you can thank me later for all the sales that you close because of enduring this little bit of discomfort. So next, we are going to look at the biggest lever. Now, so far, we've identified the moment that we believe the call went off course. I showed you one very quickly, and I took you through the whole prompts and, of course, the idea of trajectory itself. If you've ever listened to other moments of the sales call, you'll know that there are still important moments that matter. The close, the objection handling, next steps, any of the pitch, etc. The list goes on. And if you're listening to entire calls, you've probably cringed, got up and paced around, yelled at yourself, doom scrolled on your phone, and done any other various things to distract yourself from listening to the actual call. But you have got to pick one coaching point to start with. Down the road, you can work up to 2 or 3. This one thing you choose right now needs to be the biggest or longest lever that you or your salesperson can use to lift close rates. Practicing this type of minimalism can fix some neuroses and avoid the identity crisis that can come from trying to fix everything wrong with a sales call all at once. Oftentimes, I'll be surprised that people close the deal because of how imperfect or fucked up the sales call actually was. And there's a bigger lesson there because sounding like a polished salesperson is almost always bad in today's world. Now, I just showed you an example of a biggest lever a minute ago. It was selling too soon, not doing discovery first, even though she did discovery later in the call. It threw off the entire trajectory of that sales call. And thanks to a bit of movie magic and my experience, it may seem really easy to find. It took me 2 minutes in that call. I had screened the call initially. And of course, we're doing an edited video here. However, what you're not seeing is years of getting this shit wrong, giving way too much feedback all at once, thinking that I needed to fix a sales rep's entire sales process for them to close deals, and many other mistakes that I'd really rather not talk about. And until you try this, you're likely going to underestimate the power of a simple focus for sales reps. With such complexity to sales, it is really, really helpful to give them just one thing to work on at a time. So you better get good at identifying the biggest levers. Now, lastly, it's time to set our emotions aside and communicate feedback. If you're reviewing your own calls, you may just need to ask yourself questions and then let the answer come to you. You ask yourself questions like, if I got another chance at this call, what was the main thing that I'd do differently? How much of what I'd like to be different in this call is actually in my control? And what did I do on this call that I'm proud of? Go on a walk, a drive, hit the gym, or just do literally anything else to get your mind off this for a while. The answers will start to come through if you're looking and listening for them. Note them down or write them down or type them down. The answers will come through if you're looking and listening for them. Then just note them down, write them down, write a little love note to yourself digitally or the old-fashioned way, and sit with it. And then you can work to implement it. Now, if you are delivering coaching or feedback to a sales rep, you have a few options. You can do it live on a call. You can do it in a video, which is my personal favorite. You can deliver them just a voice note, or you can write out the message to them. Now, only do that if you have an established coaching relationship with them, because tonality gets lost, context gets lost. They don't know where you're coming from. And I'm not going to attempt to condense my entire leadership philosophy into this video, but I'll give you this for now. When you deliver feedback to a sales rep, bear in mind when and how they're going to receive it. Make sure that you're demonstrating an actual understanding of what happened on those calls, or better yet, referencing and showing very specific timestamps and examples like we just listened to of that call together. Which is why a Loom video is one of my preferred ways to deliver extensive feedback. I'll play some of the call and then talk about it as if we're live. This gives the sales rep time to privately react instead of both of us falling into an appeasement or people-pleasing trap on a call together. I like to always give my diagnosis of why I think something happened too. I'll show them the moments earlier that then led to how that call ended. And instead of saying what the right way of doing something is, I'll just simply offer my advice as a different approach. I'll give them a few examples of questions, word tracks, and just thoughts that I'd have in that exact scenario, because it's, again, important to keep feedback centered around the biggest lever, which is the framework or the skill they can work on, like sticking to discovery, like clearly framing the agenda of your call, like simply identifying and isolating an objection, like diagnosing what their biggest problem is. I actually have an entire course in my sales management school dedicated to what I think are the 7 essential frameworks for consultative sales. It's far more about these frameworks, about psychology and mechanics, than it is style or tone or how someone sounded. I think too much of sales coaching is around tone, and it really doesn't matter that much. Try to keep the feedback somewhat open-ended. Leave space for a discussion in the next day or so, either on a huddle or on a one-on-one. However, if you follow the process that I'm giving you right now and combine that with your authentic opinion, you're going to get better. You'd be amazed at how grateful someone is when you can show them the thing that they couldn't see, or they haven't given themselves the opportunity to see in a different way from a different perspective. So now that you have all the tools and the process here, it's time to go listen to some calls. Once you commit to call review, you're going to realize 2 things. Number 1, how valuable it is to scaling a sales team. And number 2, how much freaking time it takes to do properly and often enough to make a meaningful impact. Which is exactly why I've developed systems to review larger volumes of sales calls without sacrificing quality of feedback. If you're spending hours each week reviewing sales calls and you want to get 90% of that time back, ask me about Call Review IQ. Now, I hope this video was helpful. Let's go make some money.